Good morning on this Sunday, May 2nd, and welcome to the Georgia Gang. President Biden visits Georgia on his 100th day in office, thanking voters for helping to put him in office and selling them on his new $4 trillion spending plan. Governor Brian Kemp appoints a special counsel this week for the Secretary of State's office as the Fulton DA continues her investigation into the 2020 presidential election. And a sense of some normalcy as the Braves and Atlanta United announced they'll be open for business at 100% capacity. Theron, Phil, Kathy are all here, along with former U.S. Attorney and Republican State Rep E.J. Pack. The debate and discussion begin right now.
From the Fox 5 studios, the Georgia Gang starts now.
President Joe Biden was in Georgia this week selling his $4 trillion spending proposal. He also thanked Georgia for helping him get elected as he celebrated 100 days in office.
Hello, Georgia and the other county back there.
Fresh off a primetime address to a special joint session of Congress, President Biden came to Georgia to thank voters and make a pitch for his $4 trillion spending plan that he calls a once-in-a-generation investment. He also had a message for this new battleground state as voters look ahead to 2022.
If you ever wonder if elections make a difference, just remember what you did here in Georgia when you elected Ossoff and Warnock. You began to change the environment.
Before his remarks in Gwinnett County, the president and first lady made a trip to Plains, Georgia to visit with President and Mrs. Carter. BJ, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. Since your first time as a guest panelist, we'll get your thoughts first on the president's visit and his sales pitch.
I think timing's pretty good. He's coming off of a joint Congress session speech, when he rolled out his ambitious plan, and he obviously is focusing on Georgia as a very important battleground state for keeping the U.S. Senate, and also lay groundwork for potentially 2022 and the 2024 cycle. So I think it shows that how the Democratic Party and the president view the state of Georgia as its importance in politics, national politics, going forward.
Yeah, no doubt going forward there. And I mean, Georgia is the battleground state now.
Absolutely, Lori. And it was so great to just see President Biden back in the state of Georgia, he had just been here a little less than 30 days or maybe over 30 days ago. But I want to just really congratulate President Biden for really being bold in his message. I mean, the American people elected him to go in and to change Washington and, quite frankly, change the trajectory of this country. And this very bold proposal from the president, I think, is exactly why the American people elected him to go and serve them. I mean, if you really look at how we're coming out of this deadly pandemic, the American people need relief. And then lastly, I think that it was just tells you so much about Uncle Joe that he took time out to go see President Jimmy Carter, who they have a really long-lasting relationship. And that's the type of president that I'm proud to call my president, to someone that shows compassion, someone who can speak coherently when he comes to Georgia. And this just shows you, Lori, what I've been saying on this program now for years, is that Georgia is not only a battleground state, but we're a blue state that the national political scene is paying close attention to.
Phil, what do you think about that message? Because the president's message was clearly, thank you, Georgia, because of you, we're able to get things like possibly this massive infrastructure bill passed.
Well, he's right about the fact that things changed and he got 2 U.S. senators who are Democrats from Georgia, but it was the usual snake oil salesman pitch for $4 trillion of cradle-to-grave socialism and passing out free goodies to the masses. And I noticed he stayed away from the Truist Park area in Columbia County, and that's where Biden and, of course, Warnock and Ossoff and Stacey Abrams stabbed Georgia in the back. They supported the boycott, the moving away of the All-Star game to Colorado. And, of course, Stacey Abrams now is trying to backpedal. I don't think Biden knew enough to try to backpedal. But it's the same old thing. I do agree, of course, that Georgia will be a battleground state, and I think both sides will be gearing up for the next year.
Okay, Phil went back to our old stomping grounds in Columbia County, Truist Park, of course, in Cobb County, but that's okay. Kathy, I want to get your thoughts because will a $4 trillion spending package, will it resonate with Georgia voters? Because even though we're considered a blue state, there are still a lot of moderates here.
Yeah, I think it will. And I think if it doesn't, I hope people really take a minute to think about that, because right now, about the only way we can fund any significant infrastructure projects, and that includes transportation, broadband, all kinds of things. It's either on your city property taxes or in your state taxes, and it's simply not enough. You're still paying federal taxes, but a lot of times that's going to other states to get things done, like pay for Medicaid expansion elsewhere. We have so many needs for infrastructure improvement that, this is our opportunity. And I really hope the Republican leadership in this state reaches across the aisle to help get this done, because we will benefit as a state. Having flipped the Senate, having helped get President Biden elected at this critical time, let's help get this over the finish line and take advantage of what is to come versus turning our back on it and letting other states have the benefit. So I'm tremendously excited about this, and I hope we can all row together to get some funds and get some of our projects done.
Well, let's talk about 2022 in Georgia. We learned this week former Congressman Doug Collins says he won't be running for governor and he won't be running for Senate next year. BJ, are you surprised?
I'm a little bit surprised and disappointed at the same time. I think Doug Collins would have been an excellent candidate. Obviously, he has high name recognition, and he's probably the only few people that I can see right now with a high brand recognition that could bring together the people who are very much on the grassroots level supporting the president, and those of the white suburban females, and also other Republicans who are a little bit closer to the middle. Other than that, I don't know how we're going to recruit a candidate to be able to marry those two sides together to turn out the numbers that we need to unseat an incumbent in Raphael Warnock. And Senator Warnock has a big war chest. I think it remains to be seen who the Republicans will nominate.
Yeah. Kathy, President Trump vowed to have a strong candidate to go against Governor Kemp, and so far former Democrat, now Republican, Vernon Jones is running. On the Democratic side, when do you think we'll know a decision from Stacey Abrams?
I don't have any idea, and my guess is that she can decide whenever she feels like deciding. She's got incredibly high name recognition. I can't fathom that she'll have a primary opponent that will make a difference in that outcome. It's her decision to make when she's ready to do it.
Theron, do you agree with that? I mean, I guess she can wait until she needs to, because she'll have all the money coming in on the Democratic side.
Yeah, I mean, it's her opportunity to take as long as she wants to make a personal decision and a business decision. I will just say, though, as we are here going into the month of May, I do think that we got to start having some conversations about what if she doesn't run, and not saying that she won't run, but if she doesn't run, who are the people that should be mentioned to step up and try to be the Democratic nominee. And so I do believe that in the next 30 to 60 days, those conversations are going to be had.
Phil, I want to go back to the Senate race, because some Republican names, some big ones, have bowed out of that race against incumbent Senator Raphael Warnock. We're still waiting on folks like former Senator Loeffler, perhaps Herschel Walker. What are your thoughts on the Senate race?
Well, as I've mentioned in the past, a lot is going to be hinging on what goes on at Mar-a-Lago with former President Trump on the phone with Republicans in Georgia and elsewhere. You mentioned Herschel Walker. He's still very much in the running. I think over the next 30 days, we'll have some clarity as to what's going to happen with a loosely formed, if I could say, Trump slate for next year in the Republican primary in May. I think that Doug Collins is a good man. I can understand him wanting to come back and make a little money and lawyering and being on his talk radio show, but that helped actually clear the field for some others now, that whether they want to run for U.S. Senate or governor. And of course, Lieutenant Governor, you've got Jeff Duncan apparently not running again, and I think you'll see a Trump backed candidate. You'll see Trump coming back for a rally. And I think that'll energize the base. So I think that you'll see Governor Kemp picking up another Republican opponent, too.
All right, we'll be watching and waiting. Thanks, everyone. Coming up, new developments in Fulton County's criminal investigation into former President Donald Trump and the 2020 election results here in Georgia.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Email them at georgiagang@foxtv.com.
This week, the AJC reported Governor Brian Kemp has appointed a special counsel to represent Georgia's Secretary of State's office in the Fulton County criminal probe involving the 2020 election. BJ, it's so nice to have your legal mind on this one. There's really a lot to dissect here. Is it unusual that Attorney General Chris Carr will not represent Secretary Raffensperger's office?
This is not unusual at all. The Secretary of State's office, the entity, is represented by the state of Georgia through the Attorney General's office. So the AG represents the entity. Ms. Willis's investigation, as was reported, is looking at individual conduct, and so they need individual representation in that regard. And the AG representing the organization can't, at the same time, represent individuals that are involved in the investigation as it relates to the same subject matter, because you have a potential conflict. So this is not really a big surprise at all. I think it could be a little bit more clarity in terms of reporting. Since there's a conflict, that you have to get a separate counsel apart from the AG's office to represent individuals in the Secretary of State's office to answer questions or represent the individual as the criminal investigation while the Fulton County Attorney goes on.
Theron, how do you see this case all playing out? I mean, what is Fani Willis looking into? What is she getting at here?
Well, I think DA Willis made it very clear, Lori, when she decided to look into this. I mean, we all heard the phone call. We all heard the many stories, the rumors about how former President Trump had some very unethical, inappropriate conversations with people about the election results. We know that he definitely sort of bullied people if they didn't respond and say that there was this mass voter fraud, that this didn't happen in Georgia. And so I think this is definitely within her duty to make sure that this is a full investigation. I thought BJ answered the question very well as far as giving our viewers some clarity about the decision by the governor, but ultimately I think DA Willis had to do what she said she's going to do. She's got to be transparent, which I think she's doing, but she's got to complete this because we all need to know what really happened. And I think there's a lot of evidence that suggests some of the claims that she's investigating.
Phil, this week the Georgia Election Board made up of 3 Republicans and 1 Democrat. Well, they met to talk about Georgia's new voting law. They had a lot to discuss. Your thoughts?
Yes, I'm glad that Secretary of State Raffensperger is not chairing that anymore. I think that the legislature did the right thing. After all, Secretary Raffensperger last year made some unilateral decisions that should have been the legislature's decisions, and that was the crux of the problem. He usurped a lot of the legislative powers, and I think that it was proper to let him go. They are going to pick a new chair of this board, and of course, the board, and there's nothing wrong with this, should have some review powers over all 159 counties. After all, the counties do run the elections, and the Secretary of State's office is an overseer, of course, but this board has responsibilities. And I mentioned always, and a lot of people mentioned Fulton County. There is a dysfunctional county. I don't care what your politics are. This goes back for over a decade, 15 years. It definitely needs some supervision, adult supervision. It was actually the Democrat on the Fulton County Elections Board that asked for Richard Barron to be fired, the elections director, along with the Republicans. So I wouldn't be surprised if Fulton County continues to have problems. The state board rightly should take over and be the adult.
Kathy, I was going to move on, but I know you want to comment on this as well.
Yeah, well, the state election board is inherently a political board, right? Right now there's 3 Republicans and 1 Democrat on the board. And so for a start, if we wanted to make people think that there was objective behavior happening, it would be a board that had, an even split in terms of numbers and maybe, 1 vote that's winner take all of who has the majority. But that's not what we have right now. And the danger is that, they can dip into any election, change sort of how decisions are being made to tweak it. And in a state where you're talking about Joe Biden winning by 12,000 votes or Stacey Abrams losing by 55,000 votes, it doesn't take but 1 county like Fulton or DeKalb to close up a few precincts, cause a little chaos, and suddenly you have a different election outcome.
Theron, I do want to switch gears quickly because we don't have a lot of time, but I want to talk about this proposal of Buckhead as a city. An AJC analysis found the assessed value of all the real estate in Atlanta totals $35 billion. More than 40% of that, or $14 billion, is in Buckhead. This would obviously crush the city of Atlanta's budget. Your thoughts?
Yeah, the good folks in Buckhead are doing pretty well. I'm definitely one of the people that you are referencing. You know, I live in Buckhead, and I definitely pay my fair share of taxes, and definitely that report was something that we've known. But this conversation around the city of Buckhead, Lori, has been going on for many years. I will be fair and say that it is picking up a little steam, but ultimately, I don't think it's going to happen. I think you know, a lot of folks are emotional right now. People want change. They want more presence around crime in Buckhead, and that's all fair for them to express their concerns. But ultimately, de-annexing away from the city of Atlanta is not something that I think that legally and politically is going to be able to happen very soon. BJ,
do you think there's a chance this could ever pass? I mean, as a former state rep, what has to happen under the Gold Dome first?
We're generally going to have a sponsor out of the city delegation to sponsor that. I don't think there's a single Republican there to do that. So you would have to actually have a general vote of the General Assembly to do that. And politically, that's very, very tough. Not to mention the symbolism of kind of ripping away Buckhead portion of the city. But I do understand the frustration that the residents of Buckhead are feeling. Crime is extremely high. We have murders going on everywhere, and this really contributes to the police force being really down. And I understand the frustration, but politically, I think it's going to be a heavy lift.
All right, all good points, everyone. Thank you. Coming up, we're learning more about new proposals when it comes to the future of Stone Mountain Park. We'll discuss them after the break.
Join the discussion on the Georgia Gang Facebook page and watch past episodes on the Georgia Gang YouTube channel.
The state authority that manages Stone Mountain Park is putting forth some proposals on how to deal with the world's largest Confederate monument. Theron, to you first. What do you think of some of the ideas? Kind of a quote, tell the truth exhibit. That's one of the proposals. Another is removing several of the Confederate flags. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think the CEO, Mr. Stevens, sort of talked to the press this week. And, you know, the one thing I've said about this, Lori, is that while we understand that there's only a portion of Stone Mountain that is really being talked about, I think there's 3,400 other acres of land that the Stone Mountain is on. But you do have this carving, you do have this sort of dark history for many people like me when you go into the mountain. And so the one good thing I'm happy about is that the board is meeting. They're having a conversation, trying to find some middle ground. I've said many times before, I think we need to figure out a way to be more inclusive in how we honor Stone Mountain. I mean, it is the #1 tourist attraction in the state of Georgia, but also there's still a lot of hurt. There's still a lot of pain when people see those carvings. And so I'm just happy that we're having the conversation, and I think people need to continue to have the conversation and figure out a solution that is more inclusive moving forward to figure out how we deal with the carving in other parts of the mountain.
BJ, you know, unless these proposals come to fruition, you know, this issue is bound to hurt business for the park. I mean, we heard Marriott is pulling out, so is the entertainment company that runs many of the attractions. So where is the room for compromise here?
I think one of the things you could do is let people vote on the fate of the carving of some of the statues. Frankly, you know, the war is over. The Union won and freedom won. They should dictate what history is written, but at the same time, we want to make sure that the dark period of our American history is not forgotten. But I think people should have a say in doing this. And remember what happened last time when we changed the flag without getting the input of the representatives and the people. We had a turnover in the governor's mansion. So I'm actually for letting people vote on this issue to what to do with the carvings, and I think that people would speak.
Phil, what are your thoughts? Because the Georgia law is very restrictive when it comes to these types of monuments.
I'm glad you're pointing out what the law says. In 2001, there's a law saying you cannot alter or destroy the big carving. This is a historical museum in a sense, and I think we ought to be respecting history, whether you feel it's dark or whether it's not. I think It's like when the Taliban, the Islamic militia, blew up all those centuries-old statues of Buddha. They didn't like Buddha. Well, that was history that went down the drain. And you don't want to destroy the pyramids just because you didn't like them built by slaves. So I think we have to respect the law. I think we have to also respect the fact that it's a museum and it's part of Georgia's and nation's history. But I do agree. I think Michael Thurman and others pointed this out. Let's have an overview, though, as to the history of the mountain, the good and the bad. I don't see anything wrong with that. If you want to move the flags to the base of the mountain, that's not really altering anything. You could move some of the flags, don't take them down.
Kathy, I think, though, there are a lot of folks on the Democratic side that they want to see the law changed, and probably on the Republican side as well.
Well, I think we ought to take a good, strong look at the law and see what it's helping and what it's stopping, because I think right now we're hamstrung by something that was put into law 20 years ago. So that's the first thing. I think, Laura, you also touched on the fact that the hotel operator and the entertainment operator are pulling out because they don't want to be a part of this discussion. And so, now you're starting to impact the business proposition of privatizing this park, which I think bears looking at from a taxpayer point of view. And then the other piece is moving the flags to another part of the park without removing the Confederate flags just isn't doing the job. And when I'm out at Stone Mountain, which admittedly is not a ton, but I'm always amazed at the diversity of the visitors at the park. And I just think that the way that this has been approached as this memorial to the Confederacy is not meeting the current needs of the population of both visitors and residents that are spending time enjoying this park. And I think we need to really take that into consideration too.
Theron, last word, because I've got 30 seconds here. I just want to mention, switching gears, the Atlanta Braves and Atlanta United made a lot of fans happy this week, saying they're ready for 100% full capacity as people continue to get their COVID vaccines and the numbers of cases and deaths continue to decline.
Great move. I mean, the Atlanta United games are just electric. I said this before. I thought the Braves definitely understand their fan base, and they know that their folks want to be at the games. And so I think this is something that is great. Just again, we'll caution folks, continue to be safe, even if you're vaccinated. Wear your mask and socially distance. But I think ultimately we're heading in the right direction. As
an Atlanta United season ticket holder, I know I'm happy, but you're right there, and everybody has to take precautions and make their own choices. Thanks, everybody. Coming up, we'll have winners and losers. Stay tuned.
Time now for the week's winners and losers.
Theron, I'm starting with you this week.
Thank you so much, Lori. My first winner is going to be the Girl Scouts. I'm holding up cookies. Basically, you guys read this week that literally the Girl Scouts of Greater Atlanta, Amy Dosick, who's a friend of mine, Leadership Atlanta classmate, has basically had cookies stored in a warehouse. And so definitely want to congratulate them for, being able to get the message out. And DeKalb County CEO came and bought 20,000 cookies. And I'm going to challenge BJ Pack, who's in the private sector right now, that BJ, I'm going to buy 400 boxes of cookies. I want you to either match me or do me one better, because literally we want to make sure we support the Girl Scouts and the many girls and parents that are involved in this. And then lastly, Tina Robinson, who's the clerk of course, Fulton County, was named Clerk of the Year. She's the first African American to get this award.
Over to BJ for that challenge. But BJ, you don't have to eat them. You can donate them to the military.
I would. I want to reduce carb diet, so I don't think I could partake too much in those, but I would certainly donate them to the military. My winner this week is Trevor Lawrence. Let's not forget our Georgia boy went #1 in the NFL draft. Congratulations to him and the Cartersville native. The other one I want to point out is the Department of Justice. We actually had significant movement in the civil rights cases with respect to the criminal investigations into killing of Ahmaud Arbery, and also, of course, the indictment of Victor Hill, the sheriff of Clayton County, and that's been going on since the prior administration. And that leads me also to the losers, which is Victor Hill in this case. I think that the allegations are serious, and I look forward to the trial and the evidence coming out. Sure.
All right. Thank you. And Kathy, over to you. We've got about 2 minutes. We're good.
All right, I'll be quick. Let me just say, go to showmethecookies.com if you want to help the Girl Scouts. You can donate to the military, you can donate to a food bank, or you can just take them home and eat them. But let's get rid of those 700,000 cookies. My loser of the week, once again, is Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms and the city of Atlanta. The news about the audit of our code enforcement process this week was rife with problems, and frankly, having the police department do code enforcement is just the wrong way to go. It's a perfect example of how we're using our police department to do things that civilians could do. And Sheriff Labatt said he could deputize employees to write those ordinance tickets, so let's get on with that. But I tried to renew my business license yesterday. It took me, 2 city employees, and half of Atlanta to get that done. It's a failure, and City Hall's still closed, and it needs to open up and get back to business.
All right. Are you sure about that? Phil, over to you.
I am sure.
Well, Lori, you're right. I was thinking about Columbia County, our old stomping grounds earlier, because my winner, and BJ will appreciate this, is former U.S. Attorney Bobby Christine. He's been named the DA over there in the new Columbia Judicial Circuit. It broke away from Richmond County and Burke County. They have their own circuit. It was a great pick by Governor Kemp. And secondly, I think that Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina has got to be the winner. He had a very optimistic response to the State of the Union, where Biden's was a very dark speech.
All right. Thanks, Phil. I know you're getting that hard rap in your ear as well. So thank you, everybody. BJ, thank you for coming on the show. We hope to see you again soon. Great job. And we will see everybody again next week. Thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.